being here, I often hear TV in the background. Um, I think a lot of people in the world have very intimate relationships with television and the stories the television tells. Just there's so many stories told through the TV. Um, and these screens, the internet, tablety, phone screens, even the computer screens, they're slightly different, although getting closer to TV all the time. They're still a different beast, a little bit more interactive to a certain. That's the way I imagine them. Main difference. But if I'm washing dishes or cooking or making kombucha or cleaning or puzzling, I hear TV in the background when I'm not in my room, the room that I stay in while I'm here. And what I notice from a soundscape level, I've always had the kind of mind that if I'm in a supermarket, I will get songs caught in my head or turn to a friend and say, "Oh, I hate this song." And they'll be like, "What song?" My mind, although I can consciously choose not to pay attention to things, my mind continually pays attention to all the things in the field. So the descriptions I've heard of autism, I assume that I'm gently on the spectrum, which is why I've lived a not normal life. I'm a highly functioning on the spectrum-y person, or at least oddly functioning, differently abled, whatever. I've never been diagnosed as being on the spectrum, but I've been diagnosed as all sorts of things that I haven't paid attention to, so I can diagnose myself and make shit up. Anyway, what I notice when I hear television in the background is like 90% of it is stress. There's a quality in the voices, the music. A lot of the commercials have intrinsic fear, paranoia, anger built into them. Of course, doubt, insecurities. I'm a big fan of sounds. I think I was talking to a friend of mine who's lived a very spiritual life, and I was talking about another friend of mine, and I said, "Oh, one other thing I forgot to tell you. He is a completely not spiritual person. He doesn't believe in spirituality. He only believes in science." And my friend was like, "Well, I don't know the difference between spirituality and anything else." And I'm like, "That's because you're so far into the spirituality aspect of things." You know, he's the kind of person you make any kind of comment about the nature of reality, and he has a quip that is deathly serious about how we're living in a hallucination and that we're all one and there's nothing, to do. He's like lived in the guru spiritual life for most of his life. So, and he's really into, bhakti, chanting, song, worship. When I'm talking to people who don't believe in magic or don't believe in etheric realms, other dimensions, spirituality, when I'm talking to people who need convincing about the efficacy of what people call prayer or intention or faith, it's weird, I'm not a religious person in any way, but I totally am a ghost. Look, I'm in the void right now, talking to you from the void, Carol Ann. I make faces at myself because I'm very goofy. Domenico Vino de Goofy. Anyway, when I'm talking to these people who don't believe in things that aren't in the material realm, when I'm talking to people who call themselves atheists or material empiricists, and I'm trying to prove to them that there are invisible forces that have great effect on us. One of the cliche things to cite is music, because you cannot see music, you cannot touch music, and it can bring you to tears or elation. Part of it is tied into nostalgia, like a sense memory. But there's songs. Goretzky's Symphony for Sorrowful Songs. I remember the first time I put it on. I heard it used in a soundtrack for a movie called Fearless, and I procured the CD and I put it on once to listen to it because I'd never heard it. I'd had it for months, not years at that point. And I remember I was cleaning the house, and like 10 minutes into it, it's a very long, slow crescendo of bass strings. And I remember probably about 10 minutes into it, it became audible to me, but I all of a sudden collapsed into a chair and started sobbing. And I am not somebody who cries very easily, and I was totally shocked because I was just cleaning the house. I had no idea why I was sobbing. It's not like I was thinking anything sad. I had nothing sad that had happened to me. I was just like, what the fuck? And at this point in my life, I was like 19. I was totally out of touch with my emotions, and I was just like, what the hell? A lot of you have noticed, and anybody who's studied movies, there's some movies that they're just heavy-handed about the way the music affects you, manipulates your emotions. And there's a musician I really love named Owen Pallett who's written wonderful articles about how different keys of music and tones and stuff can just manipulate your emotions. When he writes film scores, something that's useful to know. I think Philip Glass has talked about it as well. But anyway, I think that's a really good example. And in the Taoist perspective, the birds chirping in the background are pleasant. In the Taoist perspective, sound, although they don't necessarily talk about it like this, the orifices of the sense of hearing is connected to water, which is connected to the kidneys and bladder and genitals when they're not sexualized. And the positive emotions are wisdom, silence, stillness. And the negative emotions are fear, anxiety, paranoia, phobias. There's a lot of life force that's passed through sound. And a lot of what teachers I've worked with who talk about science, namely Mantak Chia, there's lots of studies that show that most humans, most Americans, most Western Europeans, their sympathetic nervous system is always highly firing, highly activated. The sympathetic nervous system is that of stress, fight or flight, life or death. The adrenals being pumped. A lot of it has to do with like caffeine, putting ourselves in situations where we don't have enough money, or we're guilty, or we're shameful and we have to hide something, or we're angry, somebody cut us off, putting ourselves in situations where we're piloting vehicles 70 to 80 miles an hour, that if we did something wrong, we would die or kill people or both, and or incur great debt. It's a very highly stressful situation to drive, although a lot of people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I love driving. Fuck you! You cut me off, you asshole! Very indicative of highly stressful situations. But I'm having a great time. I love driving. You can love things that are highly stressful. A lot of us do, like television, which is what I'm rambling about getting to. Most of the television I hear in the background, sports, nature shows, and the countless nighttime soap operas and primetime cop shows and firefighter shows, and just these high levels of stress, hearing people screeching, acting like their life is in danger, but resonating with those sound fields emanating out from the box into the house. Like, even if I'm not in the same room, I follow plots of things in the background of my consciousness. My dad, when he listens to Fox News, it's not even just Fox News. News in general is meant to make you worry and stress out about shit. All of it. It's just some of it's more like, anyway, they're working on different energy fields, but they're all making you worry and stress out about stuff. And almost all the shows are doing that as well. And I'm sure that all of these things combined together, like, stimulate the sympathetic nervous system all the time. And when the sympathetic nervous system is being stimulated all the time, you can never just let go and be at peace. Your body is constantly in terror. People are so used to being in terror that they can't function otherwise. They get anxious and in terror when they're not being stimulated with stress, very often. from living in New York City, I met lots of people who just freak out when they go out to the country and there's nothing to do. It sounds like a bummer to criticize the main, like, stream of society. I'm listening to Brave New World, as maybe I wrote about it recently, or I don't know if I said something about it, but all it is a gigantic critique of society. You know, so much British writing and theater and music, at least the stuff I listen to, is just so searing satire, criticism of society. It's a bummer to criticize society all the time. So sorry, I'm a drag. That's one of the reasons I haven't been writing for years. It's just such a drag to be like, oh, let me talk about something. It's a problem. Let me write about something. You know, there's a problem here. The neurosis, right? I wish I could just tell fantasy stories where everything was really entertaining. But in order for it to sell a lot, it would have to be very stressful. I beseech you, people, turn off the fucking television and be at peace. I wanted to connect with something about wine. I was in love with a priest once who drank a lot of wine. Jesus' blood never failed me yet. Jesus' blood. He told me that he had read or listened to, he listened to a lot of NPR, so he had listened to something that talked about how they'd found that wine grown in really good soil with lots of water and lots of nutrients just wasn't very good. It didn't make good wine. Grapes grown in that situation didn't make good wine. And the grapes that made the best wine were grapes that were tortured, that were in terrible soil with, like, you know, blaring hot sun and not enough water. And it's like some study that talked about how it produced this stress response, and the stress response made the most delicious fruits. And it's talking about how humans, you know, lived in this situation where everything was so cozy that they needed to stimulate these stress responses in order to feel alive, because stress responses are necessary. And so people are constantly pumping this artificial stress response. And I remember being at a rainbow gathering and being totally annoyed at how stressful everything was. Like, I'm like, this is like a hippie utopia, like creation of a new society. Why is it such a bullshit shit show of stress, nightmare, tension? And this old hippie woman, I asked, you know, and she said, well, you know, honey, we're all just humans. It's what humans do. So we do it different than mainstream. But one of my friends who lived at a commune in Tennessee, he said, well, you know, we don't have TV, so we have to make our own drama. It's communal, right? There was a community, and they were always fucking fighting and making all these, you know. And if you think of small town gossip before, if any of you grew up in small towns or have watched TV shows about small towns, before television, it was just people gossiping and causing stress about worrying about people, or creating stress for other people by thinking their life was wrong. One of the things I might have called this was the stress of normalcy. There's a town north of here called Muncie that one of my friends bragged about was the ideal of normal, or the standard for normal in America for 20 years or something. And all I knew about it was growing up, there were suicides there. They averaged 2 suicides a semester at the university there. And I thought, wow, being normal is really stressful. And I was thinking of my parents, who I've always thought of as antisocial. You know, my dad doesn't like strangers coming around. They don't have, like, friends that come over to the house. They go to other people's houses sometimes. But they're not super social people. I think they were more social when I was a kid than they are now, but I guess that's normal. People are more social when they're younger. But I thought, like, why are they watching all these shows that have this idea of normal? I mean, I listen to these shows in the background and I can hear the writer's room, and I'm like, oh, you're a person of color. How would a real African American say this? Oh, we need your perspective, a young white blonde girl. I don't know. You know, there's all these, you can hear just these like little phrases put in there, but they're modeling all this, like, this is what normal life is like. We say all these intelligent, witty things all the time, and we're all so happy. Oh, we argue and things are bad and stressful. But I mean, I don't know, it's like watching social media where everybody's just having a good day, but I mean, everybody's on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, so it's a lie. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like Holden Caulfield or all the other emo music in the world that just is criticizing society, but it's so stressful to imagine we are normal or should be normal, or why aren't we normal, or how can we zoom in to these lives of people living these ideal versions of normalcy that are, of course, completely surrounded by stress and tension. Again, having put myself through an advanced education, I don't know, I wouldn't say I have an even doctorate in it, of all these meditation retreats and practicing, choosing to be at peace and not being stressed out about things. When I hear the choices that, let's just say, my family make in their mental habituations, may not even be choices, they're mental habituations of stress, anger, tension, freaking out, rage, whatever. I don't know if it's a chicken or an egg. I don't know if the television, I feel like the television is basting them in stress and tension, just washing over them so that they can maintain a certain level of anxiety and frustration to get through the day. And I think the closest thing I have to that at this point, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. I've really cut down my music consumption since these meditation retreats, but in the last few years I have been playing video games, which do involve killing a lot of things. I don't know how humanity would work without the stress and tension. And when you listen to a dystopian story like Brave New World, there's part of my mind, of course, that's like, oh, that is horrible, but society is kind of a mess. So I don't know, that might be better than what we have right now. Fun quip from today, my dad was getting his car fixed, and the custom car mechanic who had all these amazing old cars around his workshop, like DeLorean and I don't know, some old drag rigged out Corvette and an Austin Spite, and I don't know, it's pretty, I'm not even a car dude, but I was like, these are pretty cool cars. As we were leaving, there was the talk about the traffic, like, how's the weather today? Oh, there's a lot of traffic, just these things people say. And the guy was like, the traffic's insane. There's too many people everywhere. This doesn't matter if we're in Indianapolis or California. There's too many fucking people on the roads everywhere because there's too many people. We need to do something to lower the population a little bit, some kind of population control. And I just turned around without thinking. And I was like, yeah, we tried that last year. It didn't work out so well, did it? And he's like, I guess you're right. Couldn't we have just let it wipe out a third, a quarter, half? Come on. We have too many people. They're breeding like... Am I stressed? Sounds in the background. The birds are pleasant. The dawn chorus. I only watch porn that has the original audio because that's the only part that really turns me on. I'm loud. I'm a moaner. Even when I'm getting massage, when I'm eating food. Sounds of pleasure. The music of the spheres. The stress and the tension. What is the song of your heart? What is the song of your people? What energy do you want to baste yourself in? Marinade. Wake up before you open your eyes and think of generosity. Receive the goodness of your life. Smile. Feel the warmth of your heart warming your kidneys, warming your feet. Breathe the sunshine in. And blather, blather, blather. I love you anyway. I love you unequivocally and unconditionally. I'm glad you're here and I want you to be well. I want you to be at peace and I want you to be happy. I want you to be able to relax. Breathe in the goodness. Exhale the goodness. We could be angels and not this bullshit. Or wouldn't it be nice?